So here's a story time episode. If you know me, you know I've got stories, and they are all true. So grab a drink and get ready to come with me on a little journey. Talking a little bit about my travels and past travels and places I've been, things that have happened to me, things I've done. And this one is why I left Prague. People talk about God and angels being over their shoulders, and I definitely think that if there weren't something out there, I would not be here today the way I am. So picture this, I'm in Denver in 2005, and I've built a pretty successful real estate career, and I'm 38 years old, and I am ready to go do something else. And I decide, because I had been there, that I would go to Prague. I love the city. It's just amazing. It's cheap. It's beautiful. I'm was so moved by the architecture and everything that it had to offer. But I had been partying in Denver like it was 1999 or like a rock star. So my head wasn't quite in the right place to be jumping on a plane and starting this new life, but I was flush with money, had enough to do whatever I pretty much wanted to do over there and just move on with what was next. I thought I was gonna open a bar and write. I was definitely going to write, but I was thinking I can open a bar. So you know the nights when I'm just gonna go out for a couple of drinks and have a good time and then go home and I'll be in at a reasonable hour. That's kind of what this was. I wouldn't call it just a regular night out though. As I'm at the bar, it's a kind of a private bar. You need to know how to get in there and stuff. And I'd learned this from my friend that was there. I won't use any names, but we became frenemies, and I ended up figuring, well, if I can go there with him and he's Mr. Prague, I can go there alone now. I get in everywhere, with or without him. And I go to this bar. I'm just sitting there having a few drinks, and all of a sudden this guy rolls up to me that I call Smiley, because he was just Mr. Smiley, and very, really charismatic, spoke, English perfectly. And he says, I know you from around town and stuff. And he mentions my friend's name, and I'm like, oh yeah, good to see you. Within minutes, he's telling me, oh yeah, your friend over there, wants to see you. Come on over and sit with us. And I'm like, friend, I don't want friend in town, and we're now frenemies, and I don't know that that's not him over there. But there was this guy that I recognized. Every time we'd go in the bars, he was the one waving us into a couple of these different places. Like one of them was the Roxy, and that was around the corner from the Chapeau Rouge. And we were always in the Chapeau Rouge pit partying there, because that's where my frenemy did his business. And I even referred him to people who were like, I'm going to Prague, and I'd be like, you gotta meet up with that dude. And anyway, I recognize it's the guy that always waves us in and now waves me in. And I thought, I'm gonna head on over and sit down with them, because now I'll be connected with, the party scene, because that's where I was at. I was at the party scene. And we go over, after sitting down and having after having a few more drinks. And the guy that was there, he didn't speak any English, but he recognized me. And so now Smiley is kind of our interpreter. And had a nice minute, and all of a sudden they got up and excused themselves and walked away. When I sat down with, we'll just call him the man in black, at his table, there were multiple people there, some pretty girls, and they just kind of sat me down towards the end next to one. And then, like I said, those guys went away. When they came back, the whole feeling of things changed quite a bit, because as I sat down, kind of making small talk with this one gal that was next to me, she grabs my hand under the table as those guys walked away and asks me, "What are you doing here?" And I'm like, "Oh, I'm just kind of hanging out, and I'm, having a good time." And she says, "You need to leave. You need to get out of here." And she's kind of whispering this to me. And the girl next to her is sitting there with the most vacant face ever. And this woman, all she can express to me is sheer kind of overwhelming fear and dread. And I'd never felt somebody grab me by the hand so hard, a woman at that, with the roughest hands possible. I mean, it felt like a contractor was shaking my hand. So the conversation goes on, and all she can say is, "You need to leave. You need to leave." And I'm like, "I'm fine, honey. I'm not worried. I'm a big boy." And it gave me some pause. I started to kind of feel like it was weird. And finally, she says to me, "You need to get out of here. These people are dangerous." And I said, "Well, why aren't you getting out of here?" And she says to me, "They have my boy." We approached like the biggest black Mercedes I'd ever seen in like my life. It was a new class of them, 500 series back in the day. And I was just like, wow, this is the real deal. And I say, "Well, I'd really like to open like a bar, like a real small bar, low, or small square footage, but, high impact, something that's like basically a window where, the kind of Hooters girls are passing beers out onto the sidewalk, and there's bistro seating with some music." And I just thought that would be a cool idea. And he says to me, "No, there's plenty of bars and stuff in Prague, and but we would like to work with you because you're an American." And I'm like, "Well, tell me how you'd like to work with me." And there, the bomb. He says, "The man in black would like you to drive cars because you're an American and you have good papers." And I'm like, "Drive car? Chauffeur?" He's like, No, you just pick up a car in Germany and bring it back to Prague, and pick up a car in Spain and bring it to Germany, and you'll just drive these cars." And I'm like, "What's in these cars?" And he goes on to say, "Well, they're just fancy cars, from, around Europe, and, you'll just drive these fancy cars." I'm like, what really is in these cars?" And you'll be shocked that it wasn't drugs. But of course, I had to ask, "Is it drugs?" And he says, "No." He says, "Paper." Paper. And we start to have this conversation, or it goes further into what is paper. And he's like, the false passports, paper IDs, credit cards, and so forth. Here I am in Prague. I got a good buzz on now. I am sitting in the biggest Mercedes I've ever been in, had been in a few. And I have no idea. I'm literally thinking, who's in the back seat of this car ready to jump up and like strangle me, choke me out? So as it hits my head that I'm in a really bad position right now, nobody knows where I am. It's 4 in the morning or 3 in the morning in Prague, and I am sitting with some pretty scurrilous people, a dude representing scurrilous people. I decided I can't do anything but play along and ask, like, oh, so what's it pay? And yeah, that sounded pretty cool, you know? So I agreed to drive cars for this person in Europe, these people in Europe. And before long, the effects of what had been done in the bathroom start to get with me, and now I'm paranoid. But I'm paranoid and anxious in a way that I'd never been paranoid or anxious with that kind of engagement before. And I realized something was wrong with what I had taken. And then is explained to me that it's not exactly the Don Johnson of the 1980s Miami Vice thing. It's more the trailer park of the early 2000s garbage. And now I know this is going to not be, oh, I'm hanging out and up for, an hour or something like this. This is going to be far more intense. And I have no idea how long this is going to last, but I know it's time to go. And they are telling me, well, if you have to go, then we'll drive you. We're all going to leave anyway. And so all of a sudden, I'm back in the big, huge Mercedes-Benz. There's like 7 of us piled in there. The girls are sitting on everybody's laps and so forth. And they're like, well, we'll just drive you home. It's a long way over to, I think, Prague 1 or wherever I was living at the time. I'll have to look the address up. But, and I'm like, all right, well, this is going to end this part, and I can get over there and I can get home, and the door to my apartment isn't like right there on the street. You have to get into the building, and then there's a bunch of different options of which hall you might go down to go up the stairs to get to my place. Maybe they won't recognize or remember where they dropped me off enough to know, and I won't have them in. I can just kind of get out of it this way. So off we go. We're at my place, and I'm like, yeah, well, tomorrow, I'll chat with you tomorrow. I got to do this meeting. I'm going to need to get some sleep, which was not going to happen. Now, to be clear, nobody ever said this is the Russian Mafia. But guess what? Everybody was Russian. And now I'm thinking, not only have I done a drug that I should have never even considered doing, didn't know I was doing until I did it, I am now committed to run probably stolen cars and false IDs and such across international borders. And I also have an invitation to, once I'm done with my work day, get back on the party train with these people that are going to party until 3 p.m. in the afternoon at dude's place, and they'll pick me up to bring me back and so forth. I'm really starting to take heed to what my little girlfriend grabbing my hand with the contractor's hands had to say at this point. And now I am a mess with paranoia and angst and all of this stuff. And I'm gonna need to find a way out. by 10 o'clock the next morning, 10:30, maybe, roughly, my phone starts ringing. And it rings non-stop from Smiley, like on the hour for the next several hours. By, 12, it's escalating. What are you doing, man? You said you were gonna come back. What are you doing? We called you. I've called you. So by 3 o'clock, it was all about verbal threats and how I have in some way dishonored him, made him look bad, and he's gonna get me. So I'm really scared now, and I'm at the peak of, maybe not even the peak of what I was gonna be at, because with the things that were done the night before, I ended up, I just knew that if I stayed where I was, they knew where they dropped me off, they could come back and find me, and I decided I needed to go on a bit of a walk about Prague. I don't know, honestly, how many hours or days even I was on this kind of walk about Prague, dodging behind bushes and sitting in parks and looking everywhere with complete, suspicion. But it was at least 24 hours. I got to the point where I thought, I've really just done it. I've done myself in, and I need to end this. And I was standing on a bridge and I was thinking about going over, and that would end everything, and that would be just a fine way to exit this scene. But when I'm up there and I'm kind of pacing, all of a sudden I hear my mother's voice. And she's just like, Ricky, son, don't do this. Please, I can't handle this. And with that, I decided I was done. I would not do what I was thinking I was going to do. I head back to my flat, slowly but surely, through a bunch of other, sightings of people I knew and just crazy stuff. I mean, it just whacked me out. So finally, I feel like the coast is clear, that I can access my flat, and I do, under the cover of like early morning, like just before the sun is up. And I am just trying to figure out if did this really all happen? How is this going on? And I get back in there, and nobody's in my apartment, and my computer is open, and I click on it, and I see, this whole, what I'd been writing before. And then I start writing again, and then I ended up, starting out like, when I screw the pooch, I really screw the pooch. And then from there, I found a way to exit my flat without being seen. I'd thrown away some new Doc Martens and all kinds of stuff, trying to get out of there. I was trying to wipe the space clean, like this guy has never actually been here. And I got out of there, and all I can think of is, whether you believe in God or angels or source or whatever it is, I know that there's a force that looks over me for when I'm out on my little walkabouts, and sometimes in the past, having done some really, really, really dumb stuff. So it's nothing that I'm proud of. This experience is a part of what my world was, and I've written about it in my memoir. And if you want to finger through a book that describes some of my experience there. There is a chapter on Prague, and yeah, it was a solid learning experience, which I won't do again. It's interesting though. I often find myself wondering. I mean, I can see that girl, that woman in the bar at the table. I can see her face as clear as day, and I wonder so often whatever happened to her, what became of her, and especially in this day and age, in these times, knowing that what I once thought was kind of conspiracy theory, turns out it really isn't. Anyway, I just thought I'd share a little bit about one of my wild experiences. I've got a few more that I'll do story times with here and there. And I hope that you enjoyed my little shakedown on Prague and why I left Prague. Again, I can't say it was the Russian Mafia, but I can say pretty sure I was fucking around with the Russian Mafia. And so I got out of Dodge. Okay, so there's another trip coming up. I will not screw around with anybody that is an organization that I shouldn't screw around with. I am trying to figure out if I think maybe Marrakesh, potentially Egypt, and then I've also thought a little bit about going north, maybe Estonia, maybe Latvia, and Ireland is not out of the question either. And I'm thinking this is going to take place at the very beginning of May. So if you've got any suggestions for places I should go and people I shouldn't hang out with, please do feel free to put them down there in the comments. And then if you like and you subscribe and stuff, then I can continue to travel a little more. Also, on the 22nd, this judge is meeting with my lawyer and the financier's lawyer of the people that have been in my house for 28 years and not paying the mortgage. And it looks like on that day, that hearing will actually finally finally get the 120-day window started. It can be 60, and if they really want to drag it out, it can be 120 days. But it should get it started to like the final round of when I get my keys after waiting over a year to put this together. And, hopefully the world doesn't end before that. Thanks for joining me.